do that. Yeah. Do you know that?
True, Geordie.
You're going to decide that, are you?
What the fuck is wrong with it?
You know how they play.
I want a piece of that.
This is it. All right, today we are joined by Bruce Rivers. He's the criminal lawyer. One of my favorite YouTubers who I've discovered in the last 12 months. A lawyer of 25 years, I believe. Isn't that right, Bruce?
That's right.
You have brought a real new breed of content to YouTube where we're getting the expertise of a man who's done this for the majority of his life, but with a good sense of humor. And I think you see through a lot of these celebrities perfectly well. And one of the guys you've covered a lot on your channel is my old mate, Andrew Tate. And he's in a bit of hot water at the moment. So, they've charged him finally. You've done a lot of the videos on them and explaining how his self-snitching, his constant boasting about what he's done across his, and I'm going to use this term loosely, career, because he hasn't worked a day in his life really. But, you know, is this all coming back to haunt him now?
I call him the gift that keeps on giving, because every time he opens his mouth, he really thinks he's the smartest person in the room, right? and he... You know, to prove this, some of the charges, I've always said you need force, fraud, or coercion. And what does he talk about in the instructional videos when he tells other guys how he set up his own deal? You know, and here's, like him, don't like him. There's so many guys that just lick each one of his nutsacks. And I really don't understand it. It's the guys, you know, clinging, what color is your Bugatti? You know, that kind of thing. They idolize the over masculinity, the overindulgence, the excessive wealth, you know, that kind of stuff. And so, but when you really break down what he's saying in his videos, you need to con these women into being subservient to you, to love you, and to do all these things to get loyal to you, so you can con them out of their money.
I mean, that is it in a nutshell. And look, it is a real shame that this man has been able to obviously do what he's done to these women for a start, but also pulling the wool over the eyes of what seems like a generation of young men who, you know, it's a lot easier to do that when you're selling a glamorous lifestyle. And the ironic thing for me is what a true definition of masculinity to me are people like yourself who do it the honest way and the hard way and put years and years of work in to build themselves into a business and build a family and stay loyal to that family. And yet what he has done is quite the opposite of that in exploiting people. He is the grifter who keeps on grifting. And to do an instructional manual, you know, I don't know if you've read his old website where he takes everyone through, you know, how efficiently he is in getting these women to love him. And then, you know, if you've got a girlfriend, you should do the same thing. And now he's obviously denying as much as he can while he consistently does interviews. I mean, look, I'm not a criminal, but, you know, as someone who's worked with them for years, it would seem like one of the best courses of action is to keep your mouth shut, Bruce. And yet, you know, if you were his lawyer, how would you be feeling right now?
Well, first of all, I don't think I would be his lawyer. And the only reason I say that is because I don't think he'd listen to me. And it's very difficult to handle a case when your client is always stepping on themselves. You know, look at what Trump's doing right now. You know, doing that interview that he did with Brett Baer the other night was just absolutely ridiculous. And so anything you say is going to be used and held against you in court. And so one of the things we did in our videos is we take the charges, and there's a really good 80-page order from the judge on Tate on why he's keeping him under house arrest. And in that, there's a bunch of different things that, you know, there's text messages between the parties and everything. But one of the things that we've done is so he says he's innocent. He says he's never said that, because you saw the BBC interview that he recently did. Well, you just go to the clip, you know, just go to his own words. And people are saying, well, that's just shtick. I don't give a shit if it's shtick or not. He's telling people what he has done, and there's evidence to corroborate what he's done. And so, I don't want to see anybody or bad things happen to anybody, but he's his own worst enemy.
Yeah, I think the narcissism level we've seen in him, where you've got a man, much like, serial killers, when they finally start singing, they want to tell you how genius they were in all of their conniving plans. And he really comes across just like a classic Netflix person who you think you're the smartest man in the room, so much so you want to tell everyone just how smart you are, and in doing so, incriminate yourself. And when you've got these manuals of how to do this and how to coerce women, and then you've got a whole host of women there saying, he did this to me, I've got the tattoo to prove it, and I've been locked in there, I've had to give him all the money and all of these things. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, you are, but to me, that doesn't seem that hard to prove in court. Am I wrong? Or
no? The proof is in his own words and his own instructional videos, and you match that up with what he did. The other thing he said is, I have to do this in order to cover up what I'm really doing, and so. He doesn't pay taxes. I mean, that he said that to one of the girls.
Yeah, he said that on a video. I seen him talk about Bitcoin and how you avoid paying taxes. I mean, what we might be looking at is the tip of the iceberg, because when you look at this man, he wasn't a businessman. By his own admissions, he was a struggling kickboxer who, even his kickboxing record is padded with the easiest fights possible. Everything about this man is a lie, essentially. And even going back to the BBC interview he did recently, he actually says in that interview, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm not going to incriminate myself. And you're like, how can you incriminate yourself if you're innocent? In terms of this thing that people say of, it's just an act. It's not real. It's not really who he really is. And some of these girls have then come out. A lot of these women who he said he's had on his books for 10 years are now defending him, saying he's a great guy. But how will that stand up in court? Him saying it was all an act.
It'll rest on a couple things. One, a lot of it will rest on these conversations he's had on WhatsApp to get women to come. You'll be mine alone. And then you take the emails and text messages and other things between his brother and the other two ladies that are indicted with him. They put that all together in a package. And here's the thing, you don't get a jury. You don't get some unsophisticated housewife from the suburbs who's gonna, who will give you the benefit of the doubt. You get a judge. And my understanding is that now, he's had one judge that has been his judge throughout this thing. And when it comes to the trial, he gets a different judge for that. A judge is not going to take the political heat to acquit him. And so his chances of winning this, I think, are slim to none.
A lot of people are speculating that with the amount of money he has, which even that seems incredibly vague and inflated, a lot of that is like, you're looking at him living in a £600,000 house and claiming hundreds of millions of pounds of wealth. A lot of it just doesn't add up. And, I understand a lot of it is for sure, but the deal could be offered to him, essentially from what I'm hearing on Google and doing my own research, that, you give up what you're worth to cut a deal to get you a lower sentence. I mean, I don't know what you understand of Romanian law, but do you think that's probable?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I know they've seized 13 or 14 cars. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, they didn't seize a lot of cash, because I don't think he had a lot of cash.
Yeah, it's all being used to put up the show, I guess.
Yeah, and so if he put all his money into cars, how smart is that? And so I would assume, and I've done deals like that before. I had a guy who was dealing, marijuana for 8 years, so 100 pounds a month. And he put everything into his home and stuff, and it was all cash. And so I struck a deal, okay, we'll give up everything, and you give him some home monitoring time, and that's it. So that's a possibility. But given how high profile this is, I really doubt that they're going to let him buy his way out of jail.
And do you think him repeatedly calling into question the validity of the trial, saying they have no evidence, the things he said in the past about, I'm moving to Romania because of the laws over there being so lax? And
how dumb is that?
I mean, the fact that people call him a genius, mate, this guy's one of the dumbest people I've ever seen. And then he does this, he's constantly sort of insulting the people of Romania who are behind this lawsuit. I feel like they're going to want to, and I could be wrong. And look, if he's innocent, I think, even as much as I dislike him, if he's innocent, find him innocent, okay. But the reality is, I doubt that's going to happen because there's so much out there that proves and points to him being involved in illegal activity. The Romanian people will probably want to make a statement out of him saying, this is not a paradise for criminals. We will not allow this. What do you make of that?
Oh, well, here's the other thing. They're part of the convention, the UN Convention on Sex Trafficking. And I've actually tried a sex trafficking case where I had 4 or 5 other co-defendants. It was a 7-week trial. So I know what this convention is, and I know exactly how these cases are tried. And, there's...
How long would it last usually, a case like that, do you think?
I probably at least 5-6 weeks, I would bet.
But to get a trial may take longer. Is that correct or no? I think they're
gonna get to trial fairly quickly here.
Oh, all right. So we'll have an outcome. And do you have any estimations of, how long, if found guilty, he could be looking at here?
I think he could be looking at 10 years plus.
Wow. And this, when you hear that and you see the way he's behaving, even now he seems in a state of absolute delusion where he's comparing himself to Philip Schofield, who's a TV presenter in the UK.
Why would you do that? Why I saw that. Why was he a...
The story behind that is he was like a breakfast TV guy who had been allegedly grooming a young man who, by the time they had some sort of relationship, I think was of legal age. But equally, you're comparing yourself to a groomer. And it's like he's going, well, they're treating that groomer better than they treated me. And it's I mean, you're supposed to be this uber masculine man and you're crying out here about them treating other people better than you. I mean...
I just did a video on this, and you see him comparing him side by side and to this guy. And I don't really know Schofield. I don't know his story very well, but from what he said, just he's a sex offender, and he's comparing himself to the treatment in the media. And it's like, this is why you don't want your client giving public statements like this, because it's just and he. The media blitz, and there's nothing he can say publicly that will help him in court.
Yeah, he did put a video package out when he first got, charged. And obviously they've been working on this for some time, so he was expecting it. And it's like, you're basically a glorified pimp. That's what you've become in your life. He doesn't have a shirt on in that public address that he did. And then he's comparing himself in this video to Johnny Depp, world famous actor, Cristiano Ronaldo, world famous soccer player. And you're like, mate, you're a glorified pimp who made your business as that. It's not like this has just randomly happened to you and you were, accused. This is like several people have accused you. It's not one girlfriend gone wrong. And you've literally publicized this. And I don't know how people can be so stupid to even take in another word he says. Is it possible that the Romanian police have evidence they haven't released yet to the wider public? Because all I know is what we've found on YouTube, essentially.
There's some guy in Romania that's been sending me stuff. And then, but then I also got the order from the court, and it sort of coincides. That 80-page order is the most damning thing, and it actually goes through these conversations, little by little, and then it talks about his own words, what he says on his videos, and then it also talks about the things that they found, and the methods that he's been using. So I think they have way more than they need to prosecute it.
Okay, because some of the voice notes I've heard where he's sort of he's messaged a girl saying, "I love you," like that message, "I love attacking you," essentially sexually, and then the voice notes, the sick voice notes he sent, which his fans are then saying are AI and just in this complete state of delusion. But the testimonies that I've heard from the women where they're crying and talking about, I don't know if you've seen the BBC interview with one of the girls who was a victim, who was sobbing. I mean, you're probably a great judge of character at this point. I don't know if you've seen any of those women give their statements, but did you feel like you were leaning to believe them or not?
They don't have to be corroborated. There's a big misnomer that what they say has to be corroborated, but it seems to me that they are corroborated. And
why don't they have to be corroborated?
They don't, because it's their testimony. It's just their credibility.
Okay.
If you look at them and their demeanor, if what they're saying makes sense, if there is corroboration, that's just more icing on the cake. But what I have come to come away with is that he's so much bluster, right? I mean, so many promises of X, Y, and Z. And it's attractive to some ladies, right? And some ladies will go ahead and be humiliated or endure, poor treatment.
Have you seen the video of him slapping the blonde female? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he apparently met her when she was around 16. And, she to this day defends him and says, "Oh, it was just game. And I'm like, you're still in his game. And I don't even think you're aware of it. Like, she's so loyal to him. And she's sobbing while getting smacked in that video. And you're like, you really think that you were enjoying that? And I feel like she doesn't even realize the level of brainwashing that she's been subjected to.
Well, that's a whole other issue. And I would bet that the government's lawyer in this case would have experts to talk about brainwashing and how these girls are trapped.
Can you explain coercion? Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Like, what exactly is coercion to someone who doesn't know?
Coercion can take a couple different forms. It can take like a physical form, like I limit where you go, I physically punish you, that kind of thing. But it can also take the form of debt. And in the case that I tried, nobody was forced to be there. I mean, and it was all about debt, because when they got here, they owed a certain amount of debt and they had to pay that off. And then once they did, then they could do what they wanted. But until then, they couldn't. And that's one of the allegations in this case about the sex trafficking, is that these women were saddled with a bunch of debt and then they had to pay it off.
How would they be in debt?
That's a good question. I don't exactly know how, the structure of the debt, but that's one of the things that that order talks about, is that these women are, to get the opportunity to do what they want, maybe to buy into the business, they get a certain amount of debt and then they have to pay it off. So debt is one thing.
So like you buy things for them and then say you have to work this off now.
No. You say I'm gonna bring you here. I'm gonna fly you here. I'm going to pay for your expenses. I'm going to pay for your, and you're going to owe me X amount of dollars. And then when they do that, they do it in such a large amount that there's no way you could ever pay it off. So it forces you to stay in that situation. But the other thing is, they took their passports. They were under constant surveillance. They were never left alone. And so their freedom was severely restricted. So when you get a combination of those things, that's coercion.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got those two females who are also involved in this high up, as the former police officer one who's in her 30s. That's a very interesting one, because I was wondering, like, at what point could they flip and turn on him and sell him? Do you think now, the closer we get to trial, they might break, or are they in it for the long haul now, in your opinion?
It's a good question. No one knows except for their lawyers. I would be shocked Well, the only way they're going to flip is if they're offered something to flip. And if the prosecution doesn't need it, they're not going to offer it.
Right, yeah, because they'd rather get the whole group of them anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they, I would bet that her lawyers have broached that subject, because it would be malpractice if they didn't.
Yeah, and it baffles me why these people have remained loyal, but then I don't know what he has on them as well, because they were probably doing a lot of the dirty work, and maybe they have enough. And when you look at just looking through some of the evidence here I've got in front of me, between all of the victim statements, there were 6 to 7 statements taken. They were making 50 grand a month, and obviously not being giving much of that. The Tate seem to have spun this on their little video, saying, "Oh, we're getting," they're saying that we did it for their money for their TikToks, and TikTok doesn't even make a lot of money. What do you make of this sort of misdirection and the spin that they're now trying to create by getting public opinion on board with them?
Well, first of all, public opinion won't matter in the courtroom. Number one. Number two, if you remember what he says in one of his videos, how he scammed them out of a 20-30%. Oh, I need you to sign this tax form, and I need you to sign this tax form because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pay your taxes, and he doesn't pay taxes, but he takes another chunk of their money. So that's another form of fraud, and so the fraud can take a number of forms, but the prosecution does not have that far to go in order to prove what they need to prove for the sex trafficking part of it.
And with it just being a judge, and the judge previously had said the reason he was keeping a hold of him, which, I mean, obviously on a human rights level, without charges, I think, even me and you who aren't a fan of this guy were a bit surprised by. He previously had said the capacity and effort to exercise permanent psychological control over the victims, including resorting to acts of violence, were the reasons why. So the judge certainly doesn't seem to be in a this could go either way frame of mind on the run up to this trial. There's
two considerations when you talk about bail or detention. And one is danger to the public, and that's what he's talking about there. And the other one is risk of flight. And that was also addressed. And if you remember, I think he had like 7 passports, from various countries. So he had, and he was a UK citizen, a US citizen. So he had a US, UK, Romania, and he had several other ones for other countries. I don't know how he got those passports, and he bragged about it. And he bragged about he could go to any country that he wanted to. I mean, I'm sorry, fuck around and find out. Pardon my French.
Yeah, and he even said, like, there's many clips of him saying, like, if they try and arrest me, he's talking about his lawyers, like, get me the fuck out of here. And like, he's basically like, if they put me in jail, I'm just going to buy my way out. I mean, it does feel like the Romanian police will have seen all of that now.
And he was specifically talking about the Romanian authorities and the jail. I will walk into that jail and I'll have everybody, doing this. It's like, okay. And then and now he's riding around on a Bugatti scooter.
It's very interesting because obviously last time he was locked up with just his brother. This time, it's gonna be different, boy. You're gonna be in there with the real killers, the real dogs, and he'll be, fresh meat and a prize, if anything, to some of these bad dudes. And look, anyone who's been offensive to women in jail, I'm not sure it's the best look, especially when you've been saying what you've been saying. In terms of just his public actions, because obviously the evidence is pretty damning, he's now he's putting out tweets saying things like, "Oh, I'll train Elon Musk for a celebrity boxing match." That's his most recent tweet before we've done this interview. And you're just thinking, like, you're not even close to being in the real world here.
No, I think he's getting a little desperate for cash. That's my guess.
Okay.
And it just breaks my heart to see these young guys idolize him and sign on to Hustler University or whatever his latest scam is. You'd be surprised. Whenever I put out a gift that keeps on giving video about Andrew Tate, I always get these comments, from guys saying, "Oh, you just don't know him," or "You're jealous," or and they're just hook, line, and sinker into his world. And these guys will never own a Bugatti. They, and the stuff that he sells, it's just not. It's not real. It's such fake hype, and that's why on my channel, what I promote is building a life, building your financial future, building your education, building your relationships, just building. So you look back in a few years, it's like, look what I built. That makes it, for young guys, they make better choices when
they don't want to do that, unfortunately, though. And that's part of the thing when you can, the reason Tate can sell to these young, impressionable guys is there's not the attraction there for laying a brick in your house every day to build a house over a long period of time. People want the instant, they want the immediate, they want the quick cash. And that's what he sells. That's what he sells to those girls. That's what he sells to those young boys. And he's the Pied Piper, and it's been incredibly frustrating for me because I'm the one who's had a lot of his fans saying this, that, and the other about me, because I actually pointed it out about him in my first video back in 2019. I first discovered this guy had about 20,000 subscribers, and I said, like, I'm getting R. Kelly vibes from this guy. He's deliberately seeking out these young, impressionable women. There's not educated women of real high value and high self-respect who are going places in their own life and don't need a man. They're not picking this guy. He's picking the pretty ones who didn't have a dad, who, no offense, but who are struggling and looking for that strong male. And I watched it might have been a Jordan Peterson clip where he talked about men who are psychopaths. Essentially, they can put extreme confidence to young women, and women will mistake that confidence for competence because they're not able to discern between the two of them. And I think he is a living example of that kind of, to sell yourself in the best way possible. And if the reality is nowhere near that, it doesn't matter, because people aren't smart enough to know the difference, aside from people like yourself, of course. And yeah, what do you think about the youth impact that he is having right now? Because people seem to be sort of, I don't know, not really understanding the damage he is having.
It's just sad because he's a caricature of success and not real success. Not something you could really apply in your daily life. How many of these guys are actually going to start an OnlyFans page or start a webcam business? I mean, it's
not replicable. And for a start, his methods were illegal. So this isn't something you can try and test in your own life. And that's why him selling it is more laughable than anything. And when you look at what he's been able to do I understand there's been a feminization from how civilized the world has become, and now we have social media where people don't have to be accountable to what they say to each other. And he has capitalized on that by being this polar opposite, so that people who are sick of that, have an outlet in their mind of, oh, well, I'll follow this guy because he speaks to me more than the feminists and all of the other people who seem to be taking over online right now. There's a lot of lost men who feel like probably emotionally and biologically they belong in a different era to where they are now, and they can't really figure out how to behave like men, so they're looking to people, and he is waving over here, yeah, I've got the right answer, and clearly not. But when you talk about the sex trafficking specifically, would that, in the UK, they have what's called a sex offenders register where people who've molested kids and whatever have to sign on. Would that mean he'd have to sign that, for example?
100%. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got charges pending in the UK and possibly the US.
Yeah, well, there's victims from both sides, aren't there? So they'll be, yeah.
I think they're probably just waiting to see what happens in Romania. But, and I just don't know when it became fashionable to treat women like shit, to hit them.
You know what it is, though, right? It's because there's more, from what statistically I'm learning about, is dating and social media has changed the world so much. So now, like, women are aiming higher than ever because they're saying what's available because of Instagram. It's not like the old days where we would just, meet a girl at a dance or at a nightclub or whatever. So the amount of men who can attract women seems to be getting smaller. So therefore, there's more virgins than ever, right? And these virgins, they want an answer. And they've got a guy being like, hey guys, this is how it's done. This is how you do it with the ladies. And there's a lot of these Pied Pipers who are charming these young men and thinking that the way to go is to be an arsehole. And actually making women laugh and being nice to them and paying for stuff is actually probably a better way. But
I think humor is probably the biggest aphrodisiac for women, to be quite frank.
Facts. Yeah. If you ever see an ugly guy with a hot woman, he is a guaranteed good laugh. Obviously, this human trafficking thing, you've done these trials before. What percentage chance do you give Andrew Tate for being found innocent?
0. Okay. 0. I just, people say, well, they don't have any evidence. And they do have evidence. Somebody's testimony is evidence. If the women come in and testify to what he did and how he impacted their life and how he, kept them isolated, both financially and physically, and how he made all these promises to them that were all bullshit and were all intentional lies. I think it's going to be very hard for a court to ignore it. And remember, he doesn't get to have 12 minds, 12 independent minds who are going to look at this thing, from a bunch of different directions. They get one shot with one judge. And, he's not going to have the benefit of the normal jury system that we're used to.
It feels to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, when people say, there's no evidence, what they're meaning is there's not an actual videotape of him committing this act on a woman. But all right, okay, but that's why proving sex attacks is so difficult, and that's why the evidence is often lost or not found in time, but because time is of the essence in these sort of things for DNA. But when you look at a guy who's promoted himself to do this, has told you how he coerces women, has given a course on how to do this, you've then got messages between him and the victims in question where he is saying, I loved you last night. The voice notes, you've then got all of their injuries, all of their issues, the fact that they were there, the fact that we can prove them there, we can put them there, we can show that they were earning money for him, that then went into his account. When people say there's no evidence, I'm like, what more do you want aside from a literal video of it?
You just laid it all out. You just laid it out perfectly. They don't, look at the facts objectively. And I've looked at them objectively. And the first thing he's going to want to do, let's just talk about a defense. What does his defense look like? And the defense is going to be, they were there voluntarily. Everything they did was consensual. They made money, and it was an opportunity for them. That's going to be their defense. And they will probably have many positive messages from other girls, and then they're going to try to have other girls probably try to discredit them. That's going to be their defense, but I think it's going to fall short.
That does make a lot of sense. I mean, what else could he go for realistically? Before we move on from Tate, if he was to get 10 plus years, do you have any idea of how many years he'd actually serve?
I don't know what if they get good time in Romania or not. But from what I understand, and I've seen a couple interviews with guys who've done some time in Romania, and it doesn't sound like it's a pleasant place to be.
No, I interviewed a guy who'd done time in Romania, and he basically said, because of the prosecutor that they've got on board, who was basically a pit bull, he's like, they wouldn't have even arrested him if they didn't know for a fact they were going to get a conviction, because that's the way this guy sort of operates. He's one of the best guys that they have, obviously. Have you done a sex trafficking case like this before, where you were prosecuting or defending, and what was the outcome?
Well, I can't ever see myself putting people in jail. That's not in my DNA. So I defend always. And the one that comes to mind, I had a 7-week sex trafficking trial. It was all Thai. It was related to Thai women. And my client set up my client was a Thai woman. She was a sex worker herself. And she set up a few different houses and would have these gals work for her. And she worked right alongside them. And the issue in that case wasn't whether she did what was being alleged. The issue was whether it was force, fraud, or coercion. And they said that the debt, she wound up getting convicted, but the guidelines, it was worth trying because we educated the judge as to what the case was about, basically. And she was looking at well over 20 years, like 270 months, I think was the top end of the guidelines. And I got her under 120. So we beat the guidelines, we beat any offer. And
you said you got her under what? Sorry, how many years?
120 months.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
for 10 years, just under 10 years.
Oh.
But by the time we got to trial, she had, 3 or 4 years in already. So she only had to do a little more time when she was out. But it was a really fun trial in the sense that we had, 5 or 6 guys. And it was the camaraderie and the shit that happens in court. I'm telling you, they make movies about what we do. They don't make movies about, accountants, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was really a fun trial. The best line out of this was this guy wanted to arrange a time to go see one of these ladies. And he asked if she can wear the shoes that she's wearing in the ad. And I don't have the fucking shoes. Did he come to fuck me or the shoes? And I said, that sounded like a powerful woman to me,
Yeah, buddy. You often will have to defend bad people, essentially, because everyone has the right to a defense. And you have probably at times gotten someone an innocent verdict who may not have officially been innocent, and that's part of your job, is to do your best. Do you ever question that on a moral level with yourself?
No, that's just future marketing. If they go commit more crimes, I get more business. I'm kidding about that. If they do commit
a future crime, people will look at you and go, "Damn, that guy, he did a great job," because they were psycho. Like it almost is, isn't it?
It doesn't happen as often as you think. The federal government, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the United States, their conviction rate is like 96% or something like that. It's insane. I had 10 trials last year. I won 7 out of the 10. I had one civil case where my client was awarded $35 million on a burn case. He was burned on 40% of his body in a work-related accident. But the other 9 trials were all criminal cases, and you don't win them all. I mean, you can't win them all. And if you win them all, there's only 2 kinds of liars. There's only 2 kinds of lawyers.
This is really Jim Carrey stuff right now, right? Liar.
There's only 2 kinds of lawyers who have never lost a case. Liars and pussies. Those are the 2 kinds of lawyers. I had 2 cases last year that were really bad homicides and very big verdicts for the prosecution. I mean, and so if I win a case and I know my guy did it, or is actually guilty, that's not on me. That's on the prosecution for losing the case. Because the burden is not on me to put on a defense. The burden is on the state to prove the guilt.
I mean, yeah, you make a very good point. And ultimately, if you're able to do that, then you're doing the right job, for your client.
As Thomas Jefferson said, better to let 10 guilty go free than 1 innocent be imprisoned.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? It really is a difficult system to live within. And I definitely want to get you back on for a more in-depth talk, because I think that this is such a fascinating topic. I mean, we love crime documentaries for this reason, and I'd love to go through more of your career. Just one last question before I let you go. When you look back at your legacy as a lawyer, and I'd like to talk more about just the man behind that, but just as a lawyer, what is your legacy in your opinion amongst your peers, amongst the way people see you as a lawyer?
Somebody who is a tough, strident advocate who played by the rules and dealt with everybody in a fair and sometimes jocular way. I like to make people laugh wherever I go.
Mate, we know that. Anyone who's watched your channel, and it's a fantastic channel, I will put the link in the description below for people who want to go and check out, because you break down especially celebrity trials, which there seem to be a lot of, weirdly. There's just an abnormal amount of criminals getting popular. But no, I will put a link for the Bruce Rivers channel below. I can't wait to have you on again. I'd love to do, when we've got more time and you're not so busy, to sit down and talk about your entire career, talk about the highlights of your career and some of the big moments that you've been through, and just overall the justice system. And hopefully we can do that soon, mate.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate meeting you. And you've been at my son, Michael Rivers, who's our content genius, has been a huge fan of yours for a lot of years.
Oh, big love to him then. And well done on everything. He is killing it on your channel, doing a fantastic job. So yeah, thanks to everyone who tuned in. We'll be sure to do a part 2 soon, and we'll see you later. Cheers.